The 32-year-old truck driver of the tanker that exploded in Boksburg, claiming at least 18 lives, is set to appear in court today. He's facing a litany of charges, including culpable homicide and malicious damage to property. Our reporter Govan Whittles is at the Boksburg Magistrates Court and joins us now. Govan, any indication on when that driver will be appearing in the dock?
Not just yet, Erin, but we do understand that he is in the building. He was held at a nearby police station overnight and brought to the court building much earlier. We've made that application to broadcast his appearance live, and of course we're waiting to hear whether that will be approved by the Boksburg Magistrates Court. It's a first appearance, so usually it only takes a few minutes and is not known to happen immediately when court begins. We're hoping that it'll be within the hour, but at this point it's difficult to say when he will be appearing. Nevertheless, we're here at the Boksburg Magistrates Court where he will make that appearance. There's a lot of expectation to see him in the dock. While this is happening, the families of those who have lost loved ones have been asked to identify their bodies at the Germiston mortuary. Not as many people here from the community as we expected. Of course, there were a group of the former employees from the Infinity truck driving company. But another interesting development here is that there are members of the Emergency Medical Services Chaplains Division who have come here to offer their prayers for the truck driver, pointing out that in this instance, while he's being blamed for the entire incident, that he didn't wake up with the intention to cause such a freak accident, and that he also is deserving of some support, and they're hoping to get a chance to support him. They've reached out to his family, hoping to extend some support to them, and identifying this as a tragedy which was not intentional, and they're of course also hoping to get a glimpse of him, spend some time with him before he gets into the dock. There are a number of questions that he needs to answer as the truck driver, and of course the families of people who've lost loved ones have questioned why he was in the area. We now heard that further probing from the former truck drivers of Infinity on why he wasn't stopped from proceeding further by the controller, and this case just continues to get more mysterious as more questions are unearthed around the movement of the truck towards that residential area and everything that unfolded afterwards. He's facing those charges of culpable homicide, reckless and negligent driving, and malicious damage to property. At this stage, it's unclear whether he'll launch a formal bail application at his first appearance. What we do know is that he's got his own legal representation for this appearance, and that they're not being represented. He's not being represented by the same firm representing the Infinity Transport. And we're hoping to get a short comment from his lawyer regarding how he's feeling, and of course we'll be here when he makes that appearance.
You mentioned Infinity. Can you just clarify the relationship between Infinity, I know you've spoken to a former driver already, we'll get into that in just a moment, and then ISS, Integrated Staffing Solutions, the names of both these companies coming up in relation to Saturday's disaster?
What we understand is that the labor brokering company was essentially appointed after the dismissal of some of the other drivers. At this point, we haven't got comment from the company regarding the kind of training that the new employees were offered after Peter Mofokeng and his colleagues were dismissed in about September. They claimed that the new employees had only been working at the company for about 3 months. But of course at this point we're unable to say whether that claim is correct and whether the training they'd received prior to starting their employment was also offered to this truck driver who was in the driver's seat and who caused the accident. What we do know is that After the truck got stuck, he jumped out of the truck and tried to get people to move back. He's recorded as having run away from the scene. Some say he went to the law enforcement officials to ask them for assistance in moving people, but we haven't got that information with certainty just yet.
And as you say, Govan, we're not going to dive into the facts of what happened on Christmas Eve day, Christmas Eve morning as it was on Saturday. Just yet, this is a first appearance by the now 32-year-old driver accused. Your interview with Peter Mofokeng, a former driver with that same business, very interesting to hear some of his points and questions around the route and any alarms that should have gone off if the driver went off route or when drivers do go off route between Richards Bay and places like Botswana or Tanzania. What stuck with you from speaking to Peter Mofokeng, who has experience in this field?
Well, it's simply his claim that the controllers that are monitoring the routes which are being taken by the truck drivers have access to the maps and heights of the bridges that are on the roads where the trucks are driving. And his assertion that there would have been enough information essentially at the head office for the controller to know that the bridge was too low for the LP gas truck to fit underneath. That is untested at the moment. Much of his claims are untested, but they certainly do raise concern that the alarm bells for what could have happened should have gone off way before the truck got stuck underneath the bridge, and that the company should have been able to stop the truck driver from proceeding towards that residential area before he even got there. Of course, we don't know at this point what kind of monitoring was happening and what kind of monitoring is required in the governing of the movement of chemicals through LP gas trucks in South Africa. We'll have to reach out to the relevant regulatory bodies to understand exactly how the movement of such chemicals is governed and whether there is a law which requires its monitoring remotely. If so, whether or not the company adhered to such regulations or whether that's left at the discretion of the truck driver.
Govan, thank you. You've said that you were surprised at how few people affected by this are actually at court. Of course, families have been invited to go and identify what remains of their loved ones. But any sign of affected community members from Plantation, Boksburg South around the court precinct?
Well, there are, of course, a handful of people here who are taken interest in this case. At this point, I'm not able to point out any family members of those who have lost loved ones in this tragedy or survivors. It's not clear to us at what time the suspect will be appearing at the court, and we'll be able to say with much more certainty once inside the courtroom, and particularly the public gallery, when we'd be able to point out whether the family members of the deceased have come here to watch the first appearance of this driver and what their views are upon seeing him.
Govan Whittles, our reporter there at the Boksburg Magistrates Court, will be keeping an update, or tabs, I should say, on that case this morning. Thank you, Govan. To this